One line that we're going to sing. We're going to do it in Hebrew. And I have the transliteration on the sheet for you. At the top is just, I found a full-length translation of a song that's similar to these songs. These are, verses that were just pulled out and then someone wrote a melody to them. So the top one is just so that you have a translation of the whole thing, but we're going to do this little song that's just the one line. It's Hannukkah, Hallelujah, and it's I think it's in the middle there on the sheet. So I'm going to sing a little bit of it so you can hear how it goes, and then we'll try it. Okay, so that's the part you're going to sing with me. So I'll do it again, and then we'll try it.
couple of years ago, and it was really, really well received. It taught us a lot of things that we didn't necessarily know. And this year that we're having our children start to learn about neighboring faiths and being in a community service, we thought it would be a great idea to have her back and let our children learn from her as well, as like a real person rather than just a book. So, welcome, Karen. And as Karen has just released a CD of Hanukkah music, it is perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so last time I was here, I think we talked about the historical event that led to the holiday of Hanukkah being celebrated. So this is a really cool thing. When I was actually writing the songs for my CD, I learned some more things about this holiday that I didn't know. And that's something that's been a theme, a really cool theme. And actually the CD that I just released last week is dedicated to the rabbi who I studied with for conversion. His name was Rabbi Lawrence Skopitz. He was a deeply insightful man, and he told me, actually, the day before I was actually to do the ritual part of the conversion. You have to go into a pool of water that is rainwater, it's called a mikveh, and immerse yourself. And he said to me, you know, just realize that you are not going to go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow morning and be a fully observant, fully practicing Jew. It's going to take a lifetime. And you're going to be on this journey where you're going to be learning, because there's enough material here for you to spend a lifetime learning it. So I dedicated the CD to him because it turns out he was right. Again, he was right a lot. And I learned some stuff. So I'm going to share that with you this morning because I'm kind of excited about it. So I used to think there were two parts to this whole business about Hanukkah: the historical event that it actually happened, and then how that's kind of mutated over the years to the story that we tell now, and then the so-called miracle of the oil. But now I understand that there's actually three parts there. There's that historical event, and there's that miracle of the oil, and then there's also this this whole mystical interpretation of not just Hanukkah, but of holidays in general, but specific to Hanukkah. That's what I learned about this year. So this is information and stories and whatnot that come from the mystical books, the Kabbalah, the Zohar, and I think there's one called the Ari. So anyway, I want to start with what actually happened that led to this. Okay, so in 167 BCE, okay, the story that we tell now is that there was an evil Greek emperor. His name was Antiochus. He tried to suppress the Jewish people and the Jewish religion. He said, you can't practice your religion, you need to do what we do. The Greeks at that time were called Hellenists. You need to adopt our practices, assimilate into our society, and be like us. And the story we tell is that that Judah Maccabee rose up and fought a battle against the army of this evil Greek emperor and won. And now the holiday was created to celebrate the fact that we get to keep our religious freedom. Okay? So turns out what actually happened was a little bit more complicated than that, and a little bit messier than that. So what actually happened, I guess, is that it's a big, long, convoluted story of this happened, that happened, the other thing happened. But basically, what happened was, as I understand it, Antiochus, the emperor at that time, he decided that he was going to get himself involved in the appointment of the high priest for the Jewish people, which prior to that time and since that time, or after that time, we don't have a high priest anymore, but prior to and after that, the high priest was based on lineage. You had to be from a certain tribe of Judea, and then, you had to work your way up and earn that. Well, it was like, maybe not too different from today. They got into a little bit of cronyism and political favoritism, and there was money involved, and he started putting people into that position who had no business being there. So then that caused problems and revolt among the Jews themselves. And I'm sorry, I'm just take this off. And then there was also the fact that really, when you read any storybook or listen to a general tale about Hanukkah, you're not going to hear this. But the situation was that this was not just a battle against the Greeks. There was also something of a civil war going on between the Jews themselves, between the Jews who had assimilated and were considering themselves to be Hellenists, and the Jews who wanted to maintain the practices of the Torah. Okay, so there was a lot going on. And over the years, what happened, as I read it and as I understand it, is that the rabbis decided that what needed to be focused on was the fact that this group of people, the Maccabees, stood up and fought for the right to continue to practice their religion. So that's what's focused on. Then the second part is the miracle of the oil. So the miracle that we talk about now, the miracle of the oil, what happened was, after this small band of soldiers, and it turns out in the final battle, there were a lot of battles, actually. The Maccabees fought army after army after army, because Antiochus sent first smaller group, and then a bigger group, and then a bigger group, and then apparently the last battle, though, was something like 20,000 of the Greek soldiers against this little band of guerrilla fighters, and they defeated them. So after they defeated them, they went to the temple in Jerusalem, which had been taken over by the Greek armies and had been defiled. It was dirty, and nothing was the way it was supposed to be. They cleaned it up, and supposedly they found a little jug of oil in a temple, in the temple that existed then. It doesn't exist anymore, and in every synagogue that exists today, there is a light called the Ner Tamid, which is called the eternal light, and it's always burning. There's always burning, and in those days, it always burned because it was filled with oil. So they got to the temple, and the light was out, and they found this little jug of oil, and the only kind of oil you can burn in this light at that time in that temple is oil that's been blessed by the high priest or some such thing like that. So they only had this one jug of oil that was appropriate to be put into the lamp, and it was really only enough to burn for one day, and it burned for 8 days. Okay, so turns out, this is maybe a story that was created to focus us on the important part of the story, the light. The light is the important part. And if you look across all kinds of practice, from non-religious practices that existed before the Judeo-Christian religions came into being, and Jewish practices and Christian practices, if you look in the darkest part of the year, in the darkest month of December, across the board, there are holidays that involve light. Christmas has a component of light to it. The Hindus have, I can't remember what the name of it is, but they have Diwali, have a holiday of light. Because just for our own spiritual well-being, we need to be reminded in these darkest times of the year that the light is still there, and that the light still exists. And I think that here it's a more specific or a broader example of that same concept. We needed to be reminded as Jews that the light was still there, and that we could still continue to live by the Torah and continue. So there's that. And then one other thing that I found out when I was actually working on putting this presentation together, I'm always learning something. And the thing I learned here is that why the holiday, actually it's a festival, to be technically correct, the festival of Hanukkah, why it lasts for 8 days. And I've heard a lot of different explanations of that, here and there and over time, but what I read this week is that, when the Maccabees finally got to the temple and rededicated the temple, they had been at war for some 3 years, fighting guerrilla-style war. They were small bands of men, and they were up in the hills, and they had been fighting, and so the community had been disrupted for 3 years. And for 3 years, they hadn't had the opportunity to celebrate another festival called Sukkot, which comes earlier in usually October-ish, which is also an 8-day festival. So they hadn't had a chance to do that for 3 years. So when they finally dedicated the temple, they kind of did a dual celebration kind of thing, and they did Sukkot. They did all the things that they usually would do on Sukkot, even though it was in December. And so, because Sukkot is an 8-day festival, that's how Hanukkah got to be an 8-day festival. That's what I read anyway, and it seems like it makes a little bit of sense. So, the other question that I've always had about the oil, the miracle, the so-called miracle of the oil. So we have this story. There's always this dual thing when we're talking about Hanukkah, and we're celebrating Hanukkah. We're celebrating the victory of the Maccabees. Might does not make right, and the minority can still exist, and religious freedom and light in the world and all that. But it always felt like maybe there was something more to that. So what I learned about this year is this whole mystical thing that's in the Kabbalah, and it's fascinating. So I was sitting in synagogue on Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. It is the day when we have been, for the last 10 days, we've been working on making amends for anything that we feel we have done wrong over the past year, because return and repentance in Judaism, it involves making things right. It's not enough to just say, I'm sorry. You have to say, I'm sorry, and what can I do to make it right? So you've been spending 10 days supposedly making things right, going to people that you haven't spoken to and trying to rebuild a relationship, paying a debt that you didn't pay, returning that book you took home by mistake, whatever it is. And then we stand up and we say, I've made everything right with the people down here. Now I'm asking you, God, overarching being, whatever you believe in, to forgive me for anything I've done against the way I've been told to live in the Torah. Okay, and the imagery is, and we're fasting, we fasted for 25, 26 hours, and at the end of the day, the imagery is that there's a book, it's called the Book of Life, and depending on how good a job you've done of making amends and how sincere you come across as saying, I'm ready to start over, I'm going to do it right this time, another chance every year, which is a fabulous thing. And the imagery is that the Book of Life is open, your name is written for good or for bad or for whatever, and then it's closed and bam, that's it. So you better get your act together and get it all done and get your name in the right place in the book before the sun goes down, and that last service is over at the end of Yom Kippur. Well, the rabbi, we have a new rabbi, Temple Latifah in Flanders, and the rabbi gave a sermon on Yom Kippur, and he said, well, actually, the Kabbalah says that the book is closed when the sun sets on Yom Kippur, but it's not actually over. You actually still have a chance to come back, to do tshuva, to return, to repent, to say, I'm here and I'm going to be that person who is righteous, who lives by what the Torah teaches me. And that chance actually lasts until the 8th day of Hanukkah. The 8th day of Hanukkah. From Yom Kippur. And I was like, yeah, the 8th day of Hanukkah. That's interesting, and there could be a song in that. So I went to the sources, and I read, and then I went to the rabbi, and I discussed, just to make sure I was understanding things correctly. And this is what I found out. So the Kabbalah is a mystical text, okay? And I'm just going to pull out this one paper so I don't forget to tell you the things I want to tell you. So what it says about this whole holiday, miracle, lights thing, it says that every holiday opens a gate that offers us access to spiritual powers that are not available the rest of the year. And every holiday opens a gate to a unique kind of spiritual enlightenment. Okay? And that on Hanukkah, the gate that opens is a gate that connects us to the power of miracles and the power to overcome the mundane in order to turn the impossible into reality. Okay? So, they're out there. This spiritual connection is out there. We have to find a way to access it. Okay? And what the other thing that the Kabbalah says is that a miracle is not necessarily some astounding magician-like occurrence that happens. A miracle is something that is more related to personal change, to transformation. And the Kabbalah says that a miracle is a result of a test each person must go through in order to escape his own nature and transcend above it. And the other thing that, and I know for me these concepts are kind of mind-blowing, hard to wrap your brain around. The other thing it says is that the reason that we can access the miracle of Hanukkah now, access this, bring this down into our lives now, is because Mattathias, who was the father of Judah Maccabee, who was the first person who stood up and revolted against Antiochus and the Greeks, Mattathias's actions are what allowed us to access that miracle. His personal transformation in that time, in that place, opened up the gate, and now we can open that gate up every single year on Hanukkah when we light the candles and access that level of spirituality that can bring miracles into our lives and allow us to aim for personal transformation, which I think is, I think it's really cool. So the other thing is that I learned that's in the Kabbalah is an idea that we have this story that we tell that the Maccabees fought the army of Antiochus and they won, and that's why we have the holiday. The Kabbalah says the holiday was decided and set down to the date when the world was created. It was out there. We just had to earn it. We had to access it. And that's what happened when Mattathias stood up and said, "You will not tell me that I cannot practice my faith." He opened that gate to what was already there. Just, again, kind of mind-blowing, I think, concept. But that's the part that I find really, really fascinating. So now, the other thing is, trying to tie everything all together. Why do we light the candles? Why do we light lights? Why do we light candles on Hanukkah? So if you go back to the text, there are 3 places where there are explanations for why we light the candles. One says, at Hanukkah we commemorate the dedication of the temple by the Hasmoneans, that's the Maccabees, who fought and defeated the Hellenists, and we kindle lights, just as when we finished the tabernacle in the wilderness. Another says, why do we kindle lights on Hanukkah? Because when the sons of the Hasmoneans, the high priest, defeated the Hellenists, they entered the temple and found there 8 iron spears. They stuck candles on them and lit them. And the third one says, why did the rabbis make Hanukkah 8 days? And why do we light candles? Because when the Hasmoneans entered the temple, there were 8 iron spears in their hands. They covered them with wood and lit candles on them. And they did this each of the 8 days. So there's these 3 explanations. But when you look into the mystical texts and ask, why are we lighting candles? The explanation adds to that. You know, maybe we started because they had the spears and they lit the candles, but now we're lighting the candles because the light of the candle helps draw the spiritual light down into our world. We're lighting the candles because when we light the candles on Hanukkah, we don't light them all every night. We start with 1 candle, and the next night we light 2 candles, and the next night 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8. So every day we are increasing the light, and it's a visual, it's kind of a visceral reminder of that we can increase the light, that we can increase the light in our lives, that we can increase the light in the world. And to me, it's a reminder that comes around full circle to remind us of why we're supposed to be here in the first place. Because according to the Torah, we are here for one reason. We're here to make the world better. We're here to do something, no matter how small that is, that makes the world better, that repairs the world. The command is tikkun olam, repair the world. So it's this. I think it's this really interesting full circle thing of, yes, there was this historical battle. We decided to focus on it, make a holiday because they celebrated afterwards, because they got their temple back and they cleaned it up and they hadn't had a chance to celebrate Sukkot. And then, actually, the interesting thing is that, one more interesting thing is that, if I can find the date. Yes, so the Maccabean revolt against Antiochus, the evil Greek emperor, was in 167 BCE. Actually, it lasted from 167 to 160, so about 3 years. And that was confusing because when you're in BCE, the time is going, the numbers are going down, and then after it's very confusing. I'm not good at numbers. So that was 167, and the story about the oil, about the miracle of the oil, didn't actually appear in the Talmud until 67 BC. So it's apparently centuries later. The numbers don't mean anything. So, and this happens a lot in Judaism, and I think it happens in other religions too. The people, the rabbis in this case, who are responsible for getting the rest of us to understand and to come to some version of practice, come up with the stories, the retellings or whatever that are going to have the highest probability of connecting and have the highest probability of having us find something to latch onto that makes sense and that we can bring into our lives and have some kind of benefit from. So, yeah, so that's pretty much what I had to say today is this candles now we know draw spiritual light into our world. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Go, Rob. What is it?
Isn't the last day of Hanukkah this year Christmas Eve?
Actually, I believe it's the night before Christmas Eve. It's very confusing. I get confused, but that's what someone told me. Because in the Jewish calendar, holidays actually start at sundown. So sometimes the secular calendar will say the holiday starts on, say, the 2nd of the month. And what that really means is that it starts at sundown on the 1st of the month. And so then, and Hanukkah is a little bit strange too, because it's 8 days, not 8 nights, I think. But I could be wrong on that. Anyway, it's confusing, but I believe that this year it begins on the 16th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and it ends on the 23rd, and the 24th is Christmas Eve. Because there was, someone asked me to do something, the only reason I know is someone asked me to do a performance on Christmas Eve, but I actually spent Christmas Eve with my family that celebrates Christmas, because my family is Catholic. So I said, well, I can't do it, but then it turned out that the 8th night was actually not the 24th. So, yeah.
Karen,
Yes?
when did it start? Because I've always heard it's considered minor.
Well, yeah, and see, and that's the thing that I'm loving. I'm loving it this year, that I found out all this stuff about it. Because here's the thing, we all know that the only reason that 99% of the people who aren't Jewish have ever heard of Hanukkah is because it falls in proximity to Christmas, okay? And because a lot of Jewish families who felt that their children were being, robbed of this wonderful thing that was Christmas decided to pump it up. And, there's nothing in the instruction book for Hanukkah that says give presents, okay? But people do because they don't want their children to feel cheated. But now, to me, before this year, the answer that I would have given you is, it's a minor holiday, it has little significance. But now I would say to you, this is a beautiful thing. This is teaching us about miracles and accessing light, and this is a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful thing. And that's why I wrote 8 songs about it. And I think that, but what I would say, and what I firmly believe, is none of us have any business making Hanukkah compare to Christmas, or being in a competition with Christmas, or what I say is, in Judaism we have at least 13 holidays. Every one of them is beautiful, and every one of them has, even people, I've been called crazy for a lot of reasons, but I've been called crazy because Yom Kippur is my favorite holiday, and Jews hate it. You have to fast for 27 hours. I love it. I think it's the best thing that ever happened. The spiritual level that you can get to by the end of Yom Kippur and Nila, when the imagery is up there and you're kind of getting a little dizzy because you haven't eaten for 27 hours, it's incredible. But we don't just have that. We have Purim, where we get to dress up in costumes, and we have Sukkot, where we get to build a little hut in the backyard and live out there for a week and eat and sleep. And we have Simchat Torah, where we dance around the synagogue with the Torahs. And we have at least 2 holidays where on Purim, where you're commanded to drink until you cannot tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. And on Sukkot, there's some other reason why we drink on Sukkot, I can't remember what it is. They're doing shots in the synagogue. So we have a lot of wonderful, beautiful holidays. And my approach has been, we don't need to compete with Christmas with one holiday. We have a whole year's worth of wonderful things that we can do with our families, and that are beautiful teachings about how we should live our life. Christmas is one day. So what if we put the Christmas songs on the day before Thanksgiving? The holiday is one day. So yes, it has been that. And like I said, up until now, I would have said, yeah, it's a minor holiday, we have no business. But it's not. Look into it. Go and read this, the stuff that's in the Kabbalah, the interpretations of it. It's fascinating, and it has something to give us in our lives today. That's the other thing that one second. That's the other thing that my rabbi told me. Rabbi Skopitz, may his memory be a blessing. Look everywhere in the text, in the holidays, in the practice, what can it mean to your life? What can you bring into your life from this? And there's a lot here. I mean, never mind the battle stuff, okay? And still, there's a lesson there. We stood up to a huge, huge enemy and said, you can't make me stop doing this. This is what I believe. This is what I'm going to do. Number 1. Number 2, we found a way to bring light into darkness, right? Number 3, now we know that that was the beginning of our ability to access miracles. And a miracle doesn't have to be that a lightning bolt came down and, changed something into something else. It can be that I am going to work to transform myself to be a better person. That's the miracle. That's enough for me. That makes this a fabulous holiday that we should all be celebrating.
I love that part.
I do too.
I was that part. I like when you were talking about that being, this is what a miracle is, because that is what a miracle is. Usually it's somebody changed, and so things changed.
Right.
And what I got inside my head when you were talking about that was be the change.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
One thing about you're talking about the competition between Christmas and Hanukkah. The ironic thing about it is the whole reason that Christians have Christmas was in competition with the Romans who had Saturnalia.
Yeah, and it's really when you go down to the root of it, all of these things that we call religion, all of these belief systems, all of these things that divide us are really all ways that we are trying to understand the world, understand some bigger thing that's around us, if that's what we believe or don't believe, and find a way to exist in it and find a way to matter and find a way to live as good people. So the same themes, I think, keep coming up over and over again because we're all looking for the same thing. We're all looking for the same thing. Why are we here? What are we supposed to do? Right? That's what I think. So that's if you want to pay any attention, but yeah, that's all I got for today. So this one is called Al Hanisi, and again, it's from the text, and if you look at the English translation, you see it's kind of covering the whole deal. Thank you for the miracles, the redemption, the mighty deeds and triumphs, and for the battles. So because really now, I think what I understand is that without the battle, without the standing up and fighting, we wouldn't have been able to access the spirituality, the open that gate to the miracles, allow us to bring the miracles into our lives and understand that we're the ones who have to do the work. So again, let's see. It's Al Hanisi, Ve'al HaPorkan, Ve'al HaGvurot, Ve'al HaShuot, okay, I lost my place. Ve'al HaMilchamot, She'asita Lavotenu, Bayamim Hahem Bazman Hazeh. Now I'm going to play it, and then I'll play it again so we can try it. And I think I gave you the transliteration, which when I'm singing really fast, I have to read the transliteration because my Hebrew skills are so bad that I can't read that fast. Anisim Be'al HaPorkan, Be'al HaGvurot, Be'al HaShuot, Be'al HaMilchamot, She'asita Lavotenu, Bayamim Hahem Bazman Hazeh. I'm going to do it really slow. Al Hanisim Be'al HaPorkan, Be'al HaGvurot, Be'al HaShuot, Be'al HaMilchamot,
very much, Karen. We'll hear one more of Karen's songs describing a lot of what she was talking about. So if you listen to it,
about the miracles.
yes, as she sings when we close, it talks about the miracle.
Are you ready? Okay, I'm gonna try to do this.
I don't know if I can do this or not.
It's okay. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, singing on Yom Kippur, a book is closed on Hoshana Rabbah, but it's not back upon the shelf until the 8th day of Hanukkah. So Hanukkah, miracles can happen. There is still another chance that through true love, destiny is shifted. So Hanukkah, while the candles dance, the date of Hanukkah was set when the world was brand new. For Mattathias to discover in his time, his deeds unlocked the gates of miracles, so we could draw their power into our lives. So Hanukkah, miracles can happen. There is still another chance that through true love, destiny is shifted. So Hanukkah, while the candles dance, the power that the triumph of the Maccabees reveals is ours as we let the Hanukkah wonders and miracles abound each year. As the candles draw spiritual light into our world. So Hanukkah, miracles can happen. There is still another chance that through true love, destiny is shifted. So Hanukkah, while the candles dance. So Hanukkah, while the candles dance.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Blessed be.